Oftentimes when you hear accusations of voter fraud, it's Republicans accusing Democrats of engaging in that type of behavior. Well, it turns out that we now have Steve Curtis, former chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, accused of engaging in voter fraud himself. In fact, his ex-wife had moved to a different state and wanted to register to vote in that state and realized that she wasn't able to do so because she was registered in Colorado. And then after an investigation took place, she was able to find that her ex-husband, Steve Curtis, had voted in her name, registered her to vote in Colorado and voted under her name, okay, for Donald Trump. So I think it's super interesting, especially when you consider the fact that this individual gave an interview accusing Democrats of voter fraud. Take a look.
Want to be called a name, no matter how false it is, and then the Democrats just do what they want. And it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that virtually every case of voter fraud I can remember in my lifetime was committed by Democrats. Am I onto something here, or do I just not have the facts?
Absolutely. I did a few years ago. There was, and they commit voter fraud against one another as well.
So virtually every case of voter fraud in his lifetime committed by Democrats, oops, except for him, which by the way is not true, except for a lot of Republicans. Funny enough, almost every case of voter fraud that we've covered on the show has been more systematic, done by Republican officials. Right. Now, there was one giant case back in 2012, but the Democrats, and I remember Nancy Pelosi speaking about this, they said they didn't want to make a big deal out of it because it would only help the Republicans because claim that voter fraud is a real issue. So they actually let the Republicans get away with voter fraud without much publicity at all these days. And they're the ones that keep doing it. And this guy got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. His ex-wife said was, quote, livid that he did this. She had no participation in it at all. And she found it demeaning and presumptuous.
Right, exactly. So again, he's the one engaging in voter fraud, and he has been charged as a result with forgery and voter fraud. And look, voter fraud to me has become a case of whoever smelt it dealt it, right? The people that make the biggest deal about voter fraud are the individuals who are engaging in voter fraud or have been tempted to engage in voter fraud, right? Like, because regular individuals don't think about it and they don't obsess about it. Republicans obsess about it either because they're projecting or because they want to do away with certain voting rights that would benefit Democrats, right? Make it harder for the elderly or students to vote with these voter ID laws. That's what it's really about. It's about getting enough support to elect individuals that they want for their party, not Democrats.
And minorities, of course.
And minorities, yes.
And the bottom line is it goes to the same goal, which is by hook or by crook, I'm going to get Republicans elected. If I have to say that you're going to have less voting booths in minority areas or college campuses, and so restrict people's voters' rights. If it says voter ID laws, so 25% of African Americans in the country who don't have driver licenses because they live in urban areas or they can't afford a car, et cetera. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it so that Republicans win. I don't care if it restricts voting rights. And if it means I have to do voter fraud myself to get Republicans to win, well, then that's what I'll do. Because that's the Republicans are by hook or by crook.
Was it worth it?
Because he can't help himself. That's the way that he thinks. I don't care by any means necessary. So speaking of by hook or by crook, they caught him on camera and asked him to explain this. You're going to love how guilty he looks here. Let's watch.
Did you vote for your ex-wife in the last election, Steve?
We're not going to talk about this.
I'm going to talk about it. Did you vote for your ex-wife in the last election? Do you owe her an apology? Steve, does this affect your credibility with the radio listeners?
To say the least.
He don't like that. We're not going to talk about that.
That is, it's not a low-level official. That is the former chairman of the Republicans in Colorado. The chairman of the Republican Party in that state. Stone cold busted. We already hired one investigative reporting team thanks to you guys. Let's hire the second right now. Go to tytnetwork.com/go.